So I just graduated college recently, so I'm currently in the process of moving places. Normally, yeah, I would film wherever I am. If there's a nice enough background, I could probably use it and it would probably look pretty, but I wanted to do this one right. Currently, I'm living with a friend of mine. It's for a temporary amount of time, and so until I'm very sure that I can film some video stuff in here, this is pretty much going to be just in terms of audio. A couple of weeks ago, I did watch Rocketman, and I haven't been able to review it because I've been just really, really busy with that post graduation life. So now that I have some time to sit down, I can talk about it a little and maybe give you my thoughts on it. This is, of course, the story of Sir Elton John, but not his entire life story. The film focuses on a very specific part of his life when he was becoming famous, when he was getting bigger and bigger, and he was dealing with problems such as drugs and alcohol, and he was constantly going down this very bad rabbit hole. This is also dealing with the fact that he is coming to terms with his sexuality and what that means for people around him and what that could mean for him in terms of how he is perceived by the mass public. This one was directed by Dexter Fletcher, and if that name sounds familiar, he also had a hand in completing Bohemian Rhapsody. After Bryan Singer left the project due to the allegations, and he had already completed principal photography, and Fletcher finished that film. And what I realized after watching Bohemian Rhapsody was I think he could do an amazing job with Rocketman. And Rocketman is a far better movie than Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, I'm not going to compare the two movies because they're both very different, but this film is quite remarkable in how much it's able to tell you about Elton John within just a 2 hour and 1 minute runtime. There are issues in the film, yes, there are a few things I'm not a huge fan of, but a lot of this film is taken forward because of how well it's directed and also because of Taron Egerton, who gives honestly the performance of his life in this movie. He's just as good as some of the best biopic performances of all time. He's up there with Jamie Foxx and Rami Malek as one of the best portrayals of any musician ever. Really, you cannot see anyone else play this role after this. He embodies Elton John to a T, and apparently he was Elton John's personal choice to play the role, which is actually kind of cool. It also helps that this film has a lot of input from Elton John because it's a very unflinching biopic. It's rated R. This film is not afraid to get a little dirty. It's not afraid to go into more unflinching details about Elton John's life. And the film is very persistent in the fact that that's the story it wants to tell, not just focus on the musical numbers or give us a greatest hits movie, which is something I appreciated. You do get a lot of iconic music numbers in this, which are beautifully choreographed, and the cinematography is gorgeous. But the film is dealing with a character of Elton John. It's about his character, and I did really appreciate the attempts that they made to really flesh him out. And they really do. Like, there's a lot of times they go into things about his childhood. There's a lot of history over there. There's a lot of background over there that you get, and it's handled really, really well. And you feel very bad for Elton in several scenes. His relationship with his friend Bernie, who claims that they've never had an argument the entire time they've been friends. Their friendship in this film is very authentic, and Jamie Bell is fantastic in the role as well. Really, everybody in this movie is really great. Richard Madden, who plays John Reed, was also terrific. He's kind of cocky, evil asshole number one, as you want him to be, but he does a really good job of it. Really, everyone in this film is really, really great. Bryce Dallas Howard was fantastic as Elton John's mom as well. And I was pleasantly surprised that the runtime didn't affect the movie's storytelling at all. And I was really impressed with the tone and the fact that it was able to tell the story within this 2 hour runtime, which at first seemed short to me, but then after watching the film, I realized they weren't focusing on his entire life, and so it made for a more focused story. I do have some issues though, and one of them is something I briefly mentioned earlier, which is I wanted a little more with Elton's childhood. There's a point in the film where it transitions into him being Taron Egerton, and that was great. It was a great transition, but at the same time, I can help but think, okay, so it's really that simple? We're just gonna go into that? I'd have liked a little more in between. I also understand the film is trying to get to a point though, so I could look past it, but at the same time, there are certain things which I would like to see more of, especially with that particular dynamic that they were trying to go for. Because there are so many other things that are brought up with him as a kid that I'd like to see more explored and more showcased. That being said, there is a scene coming to the end of the film which brings it around quite a bit, and I did appreciate that. So one of my favorite scenes of the film is actually the last scene of the movie, or very close to it. I think it's a couple of scenes before the end. It's a fantastic scene where Elton's talking to a few characters, and I really appreciated the way they handled that sequence. Also, one of my issues with the film is that at times it feels a little choppy and rushed. They sort of skim past things. I mean, it's very similar to my first flaw. I think they could have added in a little more, but I think the film, for the most part, does work with what it has. I feel like there could have been a few more add-ins, though. A few little tidbits that would have really completed out the story a little bit. That being said, it has a primary focus, and it meets that focus for the most part, so I'm not particularly mad, but well, a few more tidbits would have been really great. And I'm gonna give Rocketman an 8 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching, guys. The next couple of reviews are going to be similar like this, in this format, so look forward to tomorrow for my review of Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then next week you'll get the review for Dark Phoenix. By then there should probably be videos, so we'll see. If there's not, there's not. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.